All right, cool. I appreciate everyone for hopping on. And if anyone comes on, I'll just let them in. But, I kind of mentioned you guys are all, know the importance of social media. Maybe we just don't do it as consistently or as often as we should. But obviously, we know it's important. So I was listening to a podcast fairly recently, and he kind of mentioned something that really stuck with me, and it was visibility beats ability, which again, I think it shows the importance of a personal brand in your online presence. Um, and how you're perceived is everything, right? You can't control that completely, but you can certainly guide the direction that you want to be perceived on social media. I think, at least for me, I've had the most success with Instagram. Um, I don't know about you guys, Glenn. Do you use Instagram more, Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, I would definitely Instagram.
Okay. Tara, how about you, Instagram?
Sorry. No, definitely not good at Instagram.
Okay. So it's more Facebook?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I put
Eh,
the same thing on both and I only get stuff like feedback on the Facebook ones. The Instagram ones go nowhere.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. How about you, Lisa? You muted.
She put something in the chat, I think.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
in my chat. Sorry.
my
I
bad.
got a dog in the background, and
You're
when the
good.
dog in the backyard barks,
Got
so
it.
does mine, so I didn't want to interrupt you
Yep, you're
guys.
good. All right, I see it right now. Okay. So mostly okay, so you're Facebook too. Okay. Um, all right, so mute that. So let me ask you this, guys. How do you want people to think of you as a realtor? For me, I want people to view me as or perceive me as being trustworthy. And if you go to that workbook, that's going to be the first question. And I want you guys to kind of write this is all I want you all to write this down if you have a notebook or anything or a Word doc or whatever. But just take notes here and just jot down, how you want to be perceived. It's trustworthy, or like an authority figure. Um, if you want to be more of like, I don't know, like an entertainer, that's kind of like on there where people go to different shops and interview business owners, that kind of thing. So how do you want to be perceived on social media? That's going to be a big question. Let me know when you guys are all set. You can do that in the chat. Honest, that's a good one. Yep. Let me know when you guys are all set. Educator. Yep. That's, you know what? That's for me, that's the number one for me too. I want to be like educational. Because I'm kind of talking to two different people. I'm talking to realtors, but I'm also talking to clients. Um, and for realtors, like it's a lot of it is education on the loan process, not overwhelming. Yep. Hey Danielle, again, thanks for joining. In the chat, there's a workbook in there that we're all working off of. So if you can click on that and just download that, it's a PDF. That's what we're going to be taking notes in. So, all right. So, again, everything that how you're perceived generally starts online. And that's what we're going to be focusing on, your online presence. It helps people find you in the first place, right? And it's called social proof. People are learning about you on online to see if if you're a good fit for them. And they all learn about that through simply Googling and just looking at your Facebook, Instagram, and just getting a general idea of your personality, how you work. So by the end of this, we're going to define your own unique personal brand. We'll leverage your personal brand to help customers find you, engage with you, trust you, and most importantly, connect with you in an authentic way, which then leads to leads and deals, which is what I'm assuming all you guys want. So kind of start with a warm up here. If you go to that workbook again, and answer these three questions, right? What are 4 to 5 topics you're passionate about? It doesn't have to relate to business. Um, for me, I love sports, family. Um, I like learning new things. I like history, which is weird, but it's cool. So anything that you're passionate, it doesn't have to be business. I don't know that I have a burning passion for mortgages, but that's what I do. So just take some time and let me know. And maybe, yes, exactly. Go Bills. Hell yeah. Go Bills. Um, and then share some, let's share some things that you guys are passionate about. You guys can unmute your mics.
It's kind of hard to write all those out quick, but
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, money,
Yep.
clients, travel, family. I mean, not all in all that, that order, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Travel's a good one. So
Surviving car accidents. Life in general, yeah,
yeah,
sure. Family,
travel's
friends,
travel's a
yeah.
good one. That's
Travel.
easy to document, and
Yep,
it's a very easy way to spark a conversation with someone who's brand new, who doesn't know you.
sure.
Um, it's a super engaging piece of content, which I'll get down to. That's part of the 5 E's that we'll get into later. But keep that travel one in mind, Lisa.
Yep, I am.
How about you, Tara?
Um, yeah, I put travel, family, Buffalo Bills, and then
Yep.
else.
Okay. So the Bills one for sure. Obviously, that's going to be a very easy conversation starter for you, especially where you're located. You're in that Canandaigua area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, do you go to the Bills games?
I try to.
Okay. Do you ever document like video while you're there and post it on social media?
Like on my personal page mostly, but it's
Yep.
mostly because I'm
Okay.
incredibly intoxicated. So
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
not sure if it's appropriate for business.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Glenn?
So I wrote down family, motorcycling, snowboarding, winter sports,
Okay.
uh, enjoy hiking during the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. Again, all stuff that the whole point of this is to humanize your social media account, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think I asked this, but you can put it in the chat. Yes or no, do you have separate pages for business and personal?
Yes, both
Yes.
separate.
Okay. Both separate. Okay. What I think we want to try and do, you know, is try and post things on your business page too. So that way it's not always business all the time. You are a human after all, right? With interests, things to say. Um, and I found success. I used to have a separate personal and business page, and then I just combine it together. And that's kind of what we're gonna kind of.
So
This is
that's
actually
like
the
an
whole.
ethics thing.
What's that?
I learned that in like an ethics course that you're not supposed to have them together. They should be ethically and legally separate.
Really?
Yeah.
I know agents that have them as one.
Yeah, tons of agents have it as one, and it's technically okay because it's not, I don't know if it's
Okay.
necessarily legally, but it's like you can get in a lot of hot water, I guess, if you,
Yeah, like right. You just got to be smart about what you post, right? You don't want to, you
yeah.
know. I don't know if you want to post something political on there or if you're out taking shots at 2 in the morning, right? Like I don't know if that's
Well,
something you
exactly.
want
It's
to
a little
post.
hard to,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So
How
you
about
just
you,
have
Danielle?
just a little asterisk.
Danielle, I think you're muted. No. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, won't let you unmute. That's weird. Let me see here. There we go. All right. So now, in regards to real estate specifically, where do you think you excel the most? What do you know more about than most people or most agents? What do you do better at? What do you care about the most?
VA loans.
VA loans? Okay. Negotiating. Yep. Okay. And then the next topic, the next question, what unique projects have you worked on in the past? What skills or experience have you gained that are beneficial to you in your work? And what are you the most proud of? First time home buyers and investors, right? So Glenn, for you, it might be something unique, might be someone who was a first time home buyer, didn't think they could afford a house, didn't have the money, maybe the credit score, and you helped them, guide them. Maybe it wasn't a quick process, maybe it took a year or two, but that's something that would be an example, and that's something that would definitely should be shared on social media. Tara, for you, maybe it's a veteran who maybe it's the same story. Didn't realize, what he could accomplish with a VA loan. He was worried that he was going to have to put more money out of pocket, but we know VA loans are 0% down. You can use full concessions, something like that. So what's something unique? Definitely negotiating for my clients. Yep. Danielle, maybe it's one of those things where like, your clients were scared and about, going too high on a price on an offer, and you negotiated the sellers down, something like that. But this is all just to kind of get you guys thinking, keep these answers in mind as we move forward. Because part one, if you guys go down a little bit, we're going to get into defining your brand. So we're going to kind of get through these few exercises where you'll define the three pillars. I call them the three pillars of your personal brand. It's your core values, your ideal customer, and then your unique selling proposition, unique value proposition. And working together, these elements will make it clear to who you want to work with, who you are, and what kind of value you provide. So first up, let's get into kind of narrowing some things down. We'll narrow them down later, but their core values. So these are the things that you care the most about and are really central to you as a person and a professional. So knowing your core values, it's always the first step in creating a meaningful personal brand, right? It's super important. So if you can think of, it doesn't have to be 15 to 20, but think of, I don't know, maybe 10 or so core values that are, kind of near and dear to you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to niddle it down to 3 to 5 core values. You may care all about all of them, but ultimately it's going to be more useful if we can focus on, 3 to 5. So let me see if I can come up with some examples here. Just kind of get your minds going. Honesty, respect, compassion, courage, innovation, creativity, trust, empathy, commitment. So maybe try and come up with like 10 or so. Integrity. Yep, that's a good one. Respect, humility, loyalty, kindness. And then once you kind of have those kind of down, just put in the chat that you're all set. Courage, that's a good one. All right. Now, if you have that list, circle 3 to 5 that are really the most important to you. Because then what we're going to do in a minute here, we're going to create a second pillar of your personal brand, which is the customer avatar, which is sometimes referred to as like the persona, quote unquote. It's basically a profile of your ideal customer, and you can use it later on to refer back to, especially when you're creating your content. You guys got 3 to 5 circled or so?
So this is specifically for our brand, correct?
Yep. Yep. Glenn, what do you got for 3 to 5?
It's hard to pick.
It's hard to
Just
pick, right?
yeah. So, some of the unique ones I have is hospitality, understanding different cultures, kindness, empathy,
Okay.
and honesty.
Okay. And like it's if that's by design, right? Like I want this to be hard because with social media, at least what I found is like you have all these ideas and all this stuff, and then you just don't move forward because like that's just overwhelming with so much stuff. But if we can whittle it down to 3 to 5 things, bite-sized pieces, then it's easier to kind of take action.
Yeah, it's analysis paralysis. It's
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, too many things.
Spoken
Yeah.
like a true salesman.
All right. So,
I
I
felt
want you guys to keep these in mind, as we're kind of creating your customer avatar now that we're going on to kind of the next phase here. And how do I say this? We'll kind of walk through this together. So like keep in mind, like how would I say this to my ideal customer? So that's one phrase that I think you guys should keep in mind. So the purpose of this is, again, we want to figure out what types of content your customer that you want to work with is going to either engage with, um, pique their interest, reach out. Because at the end of the day, social media, the only way it works is if it's engaging and it leads to deals, right? Like that's what we want it for. We don't want it just as like, post this for sale sign and then move on. We need to have something engaging. So what is it that your customers want to engage with? So an avatar essentially is a profile of your customer that you can use later on, right? And when you're creating content, you always need to refer back to how would I say this to my ideal customer? So with that in mind, um, what do you think it is that your ideal client wants? That's how to take care of your home, right? Is it education? Is it to learn about the home buying process? Obviously, they want a home, right? Education. That's what I usually think they want, and entertainment. Um, Tara, for a veteran, maybe they want more details on a VA loan. What other options are out there, right? Um, for me, I've worked with veterans myself too, and we have a VA conventional product, right, where it's a conventional appraisal, conventional contract, where obviously that's not as stringent. So that's something that maybe who's discouraged of, having a VA loan, having to go VA and having, be subject to that stricter appraisal. That might be something, that you can educate them on that. Hey, you can still use your VA benefits, but there are outlets out there that will do conventional appraisal on a VA loan, something like that. And I've done content on that, quite a bit. Let's see what I'm looking through here. First time home buyer or divorce. Yep. So divorce is a big one. Navigating that process, making them understand about, who gets the house, how they get bought out. That would be a cash out refinance. Um, a nice piece of content might be, talking to a divorce attorney, right? And having them, educate your clients on it, right? You have a book on it. Well, there you go. So what is it that your ideal client wants? Glenn, what do you got?
So they're looking for advice uh on the property and what to look for as far as for an investment or a first time home buyer, you know, has all the major things been taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
or are they going to be needing to save to do a roof in 2 or 3 years? So Yeah.
So so maybe what they're looking for is, what are the things that get in, I guess, home inspection, right? What are
Yeah.
some things that what are some things you can expect in a home inspection,
Hmm.
right? That would probably be a piece of content I would go off of. So, um, and then Danielle, how about you can put yours in the chat? I'm not sure why I can't unmute you, but Tara, what about you? What is it that your ideal client wants?
I guess my ideal client would want, I don't know, to find my ideal client would be somebody who understands that they're not going to get the nicest house for the cheapest price on the
Okay.
block.
Okay. Yeah. So like kind of like having that champagne taste on like a Bud Light budget.
It's like extremely frustrating when everybody gets mad at me. Like it's my fault that they have to pay $20,000 over list to get a house because the agent underlisted it. It's just, I
Right.
guess the education would be huge. Like just, and especially specifically for our region because people underlist houses and then they get mad when they go for 100 over.
Right.
But that's what's
Right.
happening. So,
Yeah. So maybe a piece of content would be, discussing the housing shortage, right?
mhm,
Discussing, what other maybe you take someone through a like comparative market analysis, a CMA, right? And you can kind of show like, okay, don't show the address or anything like that, but say like, something's priced at 400, which is severely underpriced, right?
mhm,
And show the justification through a CMA that justifies going 75K over ask,
mhm.
right? I think
Yeah.
that's something that like you almost have to like bring it out. Like they know, like everyone knows, like everything is inflated, right? But we just have to like show evidence and facts of why that's the case, right?
Yeah.
So I would maybe take someone through. I mean, it's simple as recording it, just doing like a screen share or a video recording, a screen recording of your computer, and just doing a simple market analysis, really quick. Um, all right, Danielle, I would say mine are very similar. I work with a lot of first-time buyers as well. Yep, it's education for me and how that process is. Yep, make the process as easy as possible and tips to do within the contract to help compete with others. Yep. So yeah, so you could position yourself as being creative, within the contract and how you get your clients to win offers and whatever that is, right? Maybe it's explaining an escalation clause. What there's a piece of count. What is an escalation clause? Take 15 seconds and explain what that is, right?
You're going to need more than 15 seconds.
Try. um 30. I'll give you 30. How's that? Um, but a lot of things that, at least what I found, is a lot of things that are seem easy and mundane and like, well, yeah, everybody knows that, is because we're in it every day, all day, every day. But, you know, some people don't know like the difference between an appraisal and a home inspection, right? There's a piece of educational content. We know that. It's just other people don't because they're not in it every day. So, I think explaining that you are creative, Danielle, and you have creative ways of writing up a contract where some other agents may just do the simple boilerplate, here's the offer, and walk away, where maybe you position your, like, have a story around your client, and you add in an escalation clause, you do some things that, make your client stand out. And then next, what do they value the most? Again, we're still building your avatar. What is something that um, your client would value the most? Ease of the process. That's probably the biggest. That's a huge one. Yep. It's funny. I just had this conversation this morning with my manager, about sales funnels that I'm doing, and you know, I get asked by our marketing, why don't you just have them go right to apply for a mortgage? And I'm like, well, because 99% of the people think that's terrifying. Number one, that they're applying for a mortgage. And number two, 99% of the people aren't ready to submit an application right now. So you have to kind of like massage it, ease into it, and you have to educate them a little bit. And that's the whole point of this. Um, but ease of the process, you can do a simple reel of taking you from, showing to contract to closing, what goes on in between. Um, home inspection, what does it mean if you waive it? Um, the difference between ease of process, difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval, right? A pre-approval is going to be a little bit stronger, and your file is going to already be done in terms of the bank, right? That makes it easier. So, Tara, for you, it'd be, what are some things that you do that make the process easy? And if there is anything that you can do to make it even easier, and if there is, can you explain it, how you make it easier than any other agent in your area? Winning the offer. Glenn, like, that's obviously what they value the most. So what are some things, and this might go back to what Danielle was mentioning or kind of getting at, was creativity part. Is there anything that you do creatively that can win their offer? Whether it's that escalation clause, whether it's, you know, uh, working with a lender that has a commitment letter before they buy the house, something like that, right? Something that stands out that you have within your team, home inspector, lender, attorney on your team that helps your clients win offers. We just have to bring that to the forefront. Does that make
Exactly.
sense?
Yep. Is that something that you offer? The
What's that?
commitment letter?
What's that?
Is that something that you offer, the commitment letter before the?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yep. I actually do that with all my files.
Yeah.
And then, think about where this person goes online. I think, if it's maybe someone a little bit older, they're probably more going on Facebook, maybe even LinkedIn. If it's a little bit younger, maybe that first time buyer, um, they're definitely more on Instagram. Um, I won't get into like Snapchat or anything like that, but um, I think we have to figure out, which ages and what people, what demographics are at what platforms, and speak to them through that medium, right? So Tara has more success, I think you said, on Facebook, right? So I mean, that's where you're going to have a lot of your time and energy there. Where do they get their news? If you talk to a lot of younger people, it's TikTok, um, uh, Twitter, maybe. Um, and then what do they do for entertainment, right? But I think try and build your avatar and follow these questions, and that's really going to help you create content and speak to them in the way that is the most beneficial on that platform, right? Like, you're going to talk to people on LinkedIn very differently than you would on Instagram. All right.
Why is that? Just curious.
Yeah, why would
So
you use
what
similar?
why would you talk to someone differently on LinkedIn versus Instagram?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Instagram is the algorithm and the way the feed works. It's very quick, right? Like, you're scrolling and then something catches your eye, you watch for maybe 5 seconds, you keep moving. LinkedIn is a little bit different, where it's more professional. The comedy stuff maybe doesn't work as well on LinkedIn.
There's
Uh,
comedy on LinkedIn.
What's that?
There's comedy on LinkedIn.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you wouldn't post like a funny reel or something like that on LinkedIn, right?
I, okay.
So
I didn't know
what
you.
I'm saying is you need to customize your content for the medium, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Like Facebook versus LinkedIn. I
Facebook,
don't know.
LinkedIn.
I don't
Yeah.
do Instagram, so I don't.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
had them linked, like what I would post on Facebook would go, to
Yep.
Instagram. But okay, I
Yep.
got you. Sorry.
Yep. Like for example, if you're documenting you went to, let's say you went to, I don't know, the New York State Fair, right? And you put all these clips together of having fun, all that kind of stuff. That's going to do really, really well on Facebook and Instagram. I don't know that that's going to do really, really well on LinkedIn because it's a completely different audience. That's what I found.
Okay, gotcha.
And then okay, so now we're on the challenging pain points, right? What stands in the way of achieving their goals? Is it lack of knowledge? They're just not educated on the home buying process. They don't know what they don't know. Um, Maybe it's they're worried that their credit score is too low. I've had people come to me in that, they think they had to have 20% down for a house. This is where you're going to kind of like create content that picks apart at their fears, right? And you're opening that door that they can achieve that goal of home ownership, or an investment property. If they don't have enough for even 3 or 5% down, well, did you know that you can get a gift from a parent or a relative? Would that be an option, right? Tara, what do you have for some things that might stand in their way?
Well, I was thinking that they might not know that how much that they don't have to put 20% down. That's like the biggest thing I've heard is everybody's, oh, I don't have enough saved up, which is a great mindset to have. You don't want to go house poor immediately when buying a house, but it's not necessarily necessary to buy a house.
Yep. Yep.
And especially with rent prices these days, you might as well start paying that towards a mortgage than continuing to pay a landlord. So
Yep.
if you can use that 7 to 10 grand instead of needing 20, then great.
Yep. Yep. I did a piece where, it was very similar where it was twofold, right? They thought they had to have 20% down and then they were concerned about their interest rate. And I did a piece of content where, I basically compared like having rent is basically having an interest rate of 100%. And I talked about that because you're not attacking any principal, you don't own anything. And I also, I told them to take a look at your credit card debt and see what that is. I bet you it's between 20 and 25%.
Mm.
So I think bringing that out you know, in the forefront and saying like you have other things that are bleeding you in terms of money, whether it's rent or especially credit cards. Those are the worst, right? Having an interest rate of 6.5 to 7% is a lot easier to take. When you realize that, what you're spending on your $10,000 credit card bill at 25% is not great. What do you think about fears though? Like what do you think what their biggest fears are?
Our biggest fears or the client's
Client,
biggest fears?
client.
Yeah. So I think some of them, their biggest fear is that if something does break, like the furnace or major mechanical, like are they going to be able to afford it and keep the house up and running and everything? So
Yep.
I think potential maintenance issues and
Yep.
repair.
Yeah, but they can do an HSA.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's
Exactly.
for. To just explain that.
There's a piece of content,
But that's the
right?
thing that they have to have is the responsibility of, keeping their credit up, making sure that they've got major credit cards if they need them, the HSA, it's responsibility, period. Not going out and, blowing their money. Responsibility is key,
Mhm.
and the HSA, and the responsibility on their part and ours to educate them on things are going to break within the first year. They always do.
And you know what? There's going to be things that you don't even realize that you need, right?
Yeah.
Like when I bought a house, I was like, oh shit, I need a wheelbarrow. Like I need a shovel. I need like this stupid stuff that like I never would have thought that I needed.
You know what's
Um,
crazy? What I usually tell people is that stupid vent that goes from the outside of the house and the dryer.
yes.
Because birds will like make nests in there and that will cause fires. It will burn the house down if you leave and leave it running. It's done it to a couple people that I know personally, and it actually happened at my house when I bought it. If the dryer is old and people aren't checking those things, and it could burn out the dryer as well before it burns the house down, hopefully.
Right. So it's yeah, right. So
It's
it's
crazy though.
problems. It's right. It's like what Lisa, it's what you're saying. It's, Glenn, it's what, Danielle, you're saying problems with the home after closing. Right. That's going to be their biggest fear.
Absolutely.
And I think we can tie this into that other piece of content where they don't need 20% down. Maybe they've been saving. There's plenty of loan products out there. If it's USDA, 0% down. If they're a VA, 0%
Yeah.
down. There's 3% down, right? We even have a 0% down conventional, right? So there's different options out there that allow them to have that nest egg that really removes that fear of if something were to happen, they have that nest egg to fall back on, right? And then this is a big one too, right here is what might keep them from working with you. I think from where I sit, it's going to be that they just aren't aware of what you offer, right? You're not in front of them explaining this stuff, right? That's the only reason I see. There might be other reasons where it's, fit, personality fit. Like I'm not a fit for everybody. That's fine. That's fair. But we don't know that until we create this avatar. We post on social media, we create our personal brand. We don't know that, right?
Yeah, or their friend or relative just got their license and they're gonna go with them.
Right. And you know what? That's something where like, do you want an inexperienced agent, working on your behalf? You know?
So how do you, on the other end of that, how do you combat against the agents who've been in the business forever and ever and ever, and everybody knows their name,
You don't.
but actually, every time everybody works with them, they come back and be like, wow, that sucked. I should have worked with you. Like, how do you beat that?
You don't.
You don't. You're not going to, right? So that's the whole thing with this is you're never gonna like never post on social media like trashing another agent. Obviously, like
No, you
no
just
one, I
move
don't think
on.
anyone would do that. But the only thing that we can do is post again, a visibility beats ability.
Yeah.
That sticks in my head. And I think it's true in that situation, Tara. Like the more visible you are, the more you are active on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah, but my sign isn't in the yard. This person's sign is in everybody's yard. So they just keep calling that phone number. Like, how do you beat? I literally, is there no point then? I just move on to a different town?
No, I don't think it's like that. Maybe they are that entrenched. Like, is it a specific area that like this that you're trying to break into?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you worked with anybody in that area?
No, yeah, I mean, I've sold houses around the area, but I haven't had any listings. It's been mostly like sales.
Okay.
So, like, and I
So,
have asked a few of them, can I put my sign in your yard for like a week or two after closing? But I mean, that's only for so
sure.
long. And then it's already got a sold thing on it. So they're not necessarily calling me to look at the house. So it didn't really
Sure.
generate anything other than I guess people saw my name. But
So here's probably what I would do. I would try and get a video testimonial of your clients, have them talking about how great you are to work with, how knowledgeable you were in that specific area.
Okay.
Because this worked. I did this with an agent in Skinny Atlas. I'm not going to name the names, but um, there was two agents that were really, really entrenched in that area. And then this agent who I worked with came in and started doing a lot of like higher end videos, talking about the town. So she would like walk down the street, interview business owners, just get a feel for what it's like to live in that area. So you're selling the area, not the house. So you became like kind of like the digital mayor.
That's good.
And then what she did was as soon as she got some clients in the area and she made some sales, she had them get on camera and they were totally fine with it because they wanted to help her business because she did such a great job. Have them do some testimonials and post that and boost it into that specific area. I'm not sure how big the area is, but it probably only costs you like $50 to boost a post.
Do you have a Google business page also?
I do, yes.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good place to post
That's
things.
Tara, that's probably what I would do is I would start like shooting content in that. What's the town?
I don't know if I want to say because I don't
No,
want to give it away,
no,
but
no, that's okay. That's okay. If it's let's say it's I don't know, pick a town. If there's like shops and restaurants and bars and nightlife and stuff like that, I mean the weather's getting beautiful out, so there's going to be a lot of activity.
If it's Liverpool, get out. Just kidding.
it's not Liverpool, I will say
Oh, good girl.
that.
But yeah, like I would start doing that kind of stuff. Matt, who you met, is really, really good at that stuff. And it's always easier if you're uncomfortable, maybe like in that situation, it's always easier to have someone else on camera with you. That kind of breaks the ice and kind of helps guide the conversation. And that's what I did with this agent. She wasn't she's great on camera. She just hates doing it.
Yeah.
She's got like the Southern accent and everything. And it works great. But I would try and position yourself, Tara, as like the digital mayor and like start really like putting a flag down and interviewing business owners, and start documenting your time in that village, in that town.
Okay.
Because like everybody can put a sign in the yard, but like it doesn't give me like any kind of sense of like what you know about the area, your expertise, right? That kind of thing. I think you're taking it another like whole other level.
No, it makes sense. I don't like doing videos, but I know I need to get over that.
We'll get you over it. It's not that bad. Again, if you have someone else on camera with you, it makes it so much easier.
Tara, what company are you with?
Griffith Realty Group.
Okay, just curious.
So is Danny. She can't talk, but she's in my office. So.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I'm Danny. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
There's a reason she can't talk. I'm sorry.
I don't know why it's.
I'm not at the office with her right now, so I feel kind of bad because I was supposed to be at the office, but I'm at home.
No, it's all good.
You silenced her for a reason.
I swear that was not on purpose.
So, all right, before we go, I want to get into like, your unique value proposition. This is super important too. So what that is it's a short statement that explains the unique value you provide your clients, essentially like why they might want to work with you. It's a useful thing to, keep in front of them. And center is it's a center for how you create your content. So for example, here's my UVP is I help agents create and leverage their personal brand so they can grow their business and make more money doing what they love. That's my pitch. It's kind of like an elevator pitch, actually. It's short, sweet, something you can use to quickly explain to people who you are, what you do. It's also the most important thing you need to keep in mind when you're creating content. And the formula that I use, it's what you do, who it's for, and then the results. What are the results? So in my example, who it's for real estate agents. What I do, I help them create and leverage their personal brand, and the results, grow their business and make more money doing what they love. So that's mine. You can take the same, you all four of you could take the same concept and say, I help first-time home buyers create wealth through real estate so they can create generational wealth and get on the path to home ownership, something like that. That would kind of fit what you guys are looking to do. Does that make sense of like the formula that I use?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So I'm gonna kind of speed through this part here because we're kind of come up on 11 o'clock, but take some time, figure out what your unique value proposition is. Again, use that formula, what you do, who it's for, and what the results are. And that will really help guide you in terms of content creation too. Now, in terms of content creation, there's four principles that, I usually use. It's be authentic. Let's be honest, everybody can see through the bullshit. Be native. And what that means is what I was talking about with, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Talk to the people that are consuming the content on that platform, right? Like you're not going to post something silly like from TikTok or Instagram on LinkedIn. It's not the platform for it. Think small. When I first started, I always thought it had to be this big production and microphones and all this other stuff. It doesn't. Your phone works just fine. Done's better than perfect. So think small and then be actionable. It's once a week I usually try and do like a DM me for a first time home buyer guide, or DM me if you want to be able to figure out what you can afford. Something like that. Something that creates an action. DM, comment, whatever it may be. All right. All right. Now we're going to go down to exercise 6. It's you can refer to exercise 4 too, but there's a few questions here that we can kind of speed through. But so the first one, what question does this person have about your service or working with you? And now that's referring back to your avatar. So what question does your ideal client, what questions do they have about your service or working with you? Tara, you mentioned earlier that you want to make things simple, right? Make the process easier because that's what they're intimidated by.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where you can answer that question. Here's what I do to make the process easy for first-time homebuyers, easy for veterans. I think the second question, I think we already answered this, but what information, what they want. I think a lot of it's education. They don't know what they don't know. So we need to just come up with something like, I think, Glenn, I think we were talking about, what might come up in a home inspection, right? Things to look out for. What are some things that are concerning and what some things aren't concerning, right?
Yeah.
Everyone gets the dad in there that all of a sudden they're a home inspector and they got a GFI outlet that they're going to pull the offer on, right?
Yep.
So explaining what are some things that are concerning and what some things aren't concerning.
I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that because I'm not a licensed.
What's that?
Like I don't know, that makes me really nervous. Sounds like a very gray area. Like I'm not licensed as a home inspector, so I don't feel comfortable making comments on whether or not something is a big deal or not.
Yeah, that's fine. And you know what? If you're not, that's totally fine. What
Because
you
I
could
just don't
do
want
then,
someone to be like, you told me this electrical issue it wasn't a big deal, and now my house is in flames. Like I don't know, I just don't feel.
yeah. And you know what? If you're not comfortable with that, then what I would do is, I mean, you have a home inspector you work with, right?
Yeah, well,
You could
kind of.
interview a good one. How's that? Interview one that you like, and you know, just ask them, hey, what are some things that are concerning on a home inspection, and what are some things that can be resolved? And then have him answer the question.
Okay.
And that might be great too, because if they have an audience on social media, you can tag them as a collaborator, and now you're tapping into their audience,
Mhm.
right? So there's ways around it, like the roof. If people have questions on roofs, interview a roofer. I mean, you guys have so many contacts in the real estate world. It seems like you guys got a guy for everything, right? So tap into that network. All
Yeah, and
right.
I think Tara, the best way is to be the source of the source. And if an electrical issue comes up and the seller will allow it, just have an electrician come in and do a second take, second look at it.
It might be cool to have an interview and an electrician, you
Yeah.
know. It might be cool to interview an HVAC person about like proper maintenance on a furnace, which goes back to one of their other concerns is what if something goes wrong after they buy the house, right? Now you're removing yourself from liability and you're having someone else, you know, educate your clients basically on your behalf.
Mhm.
And all you got to do is on camera is just ask the question and then they take it away. You can kind of step aside. So does that all make sense, guys?
Yes.
I want to be conscious of everyone's time here. So
Yes.
Yes.
perfect. Good. So I'll probably do a part 2 to this because there's some more that we can get into. I was gonna we can get into next time. Different types of content, educational, engaging, entertaining, exclusive, emotional. So I'll probably have a part 2 to this probably next month. I'll definitely let you guys know when that's going to be. Usually it's the last Thursday of every month that I do this. So I'll continue this kind of, I guess, series. Um, and then we can kind of go from there. But if anybody has any questions in the meantime, I'll put my cell number is right here. Oops, I'll put it in the chat. That's my cell right in the chat. So if you guys have any questions, or maybe you just want to bounce some ideas off me, like I like doing this stuff. This is the world I came from when I got out of college and before I got into loans. I was in social media and SEO. So feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you out and get you guys moving here. All right. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I will let you guys know when the next one's going to be sometime, probably last week of June. All right.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.